Okay, good morning, everybody. We're gonna begin. No, I forget. Okay, guys, good morning. Now, before we begin the class, I have a few announcements. This week is week 9. This is the official last teaching week for this cycle. Next week, you guys will be working on your celebration of learning assignments. So, I'm not gonna be basically teaching you guys anything. Um, I did. I did check all of the assignments, even the ones that were resubmitted from week 2 all the way to week 8. So if anybody had resubmitted an assignment or had redone an assignment, any late assignment, I have checked all of that and I have returned it to everyone. I also did comment in the Google Classroom that I'm no longer accepting any late or missing assignments because I have given you guys so much time to be working on those missing assignments. And I have some of you that have missing since week 2, and I can no longer be waiting on those assignments to be submitted. Um, so, those were the announcements that I had. This week is our last week with this unit, delving into God's unique Belizean servant. And basically, what we want to do this week is to talk about culture and talk about religion in general. All right. Good morning. Good morning, guys. Those of you that are just joining. And I had posted in Google Classroom yesterday that you guys will be getting a quiz today. So let's begin with today's class. So my deep hole for this unit, and by now we should have already gotten the idea of what it is that we're basically doing here. My deep hole for this unit is that we may be servant workers and community builders as we understand God's design in our culturally diverse community by graciously communicating as wholehearted servants of God. So we have worked with being community builders and servant workers when it comes to our different cultures, when it comes to loving each other, even amidst our differences, and being able to be community builders in our community that is culturally diverse and being able to communicate with each other. The creation, fall, redemption, and restoration. Basically, what is happening here, a quick summary of everything that we have talked about in the past weeks. That God created man in his image. We aren't perfect because of sin, but there is the possibility to be redeemed if we want to be redeemed, and we can also be restored. And how can we begin that restoration process? Well, Jesus said love one another, and he said love one another. He did not say love them based on how they look, or only love the ones that you want to love. He said love one another, meaning everybody, no matter the culture, no matter the religion, no matter any difference that stands in between us. All right. Okay, Rusby, thank you for letting me know. Um, Now, the unit objectives, basically what we want to do this week is talk about religion. And we're going to be doing it general, and then we're going to be narrowing it down to religions and beliefs. And how does religion and culture play an important role in each other? How does culture affect religion, and how does religion affect culture? And how do both of these intertwine with each other? So, and then the essential question, and this question I'll be posting it on Friday for you guys to respond to it. What does it mean to be a Belizean? And so, talking about our topic for this week, we want to identify the impacts of religion and culture. We want to distinguish between the elements of religion and culture, and we want to describe the importance of religion in culture. All right. So it's very important that we understand the differences between these things: religion on culture, religion and culture, and religion in culture. All right. So As I had said, we have a quiz to do. I will be posting the link in the chat. You guys are to click on it. It's a Google form, has 10 questions. Each question is worth 2 points, and I will be recording this grade. All right? And I will give you guys like about 10 minutes. Is 10 minutes okay? 1 minute for each question. It's multiple choice, so it shouldn't um take you that much time, right?
Excuse me, miss, will it be graded?
Yes, it will be graded. So as soon as you finish the Google form, it will automatically give you your grade and you know how much you have gotten. The passing mark is 14 out of 20. So if you get 14, 16, 18, or 20, you have passed. If you get anything lower than 14, that means you did not perform well. And I will record it. I had asked you guys yesterday to review your notes. So heads up, the quiz is about what we talked about last week, the East Indians, and then what we talked about the week before, which was Mayas. 5 questions on Maya and the Mayan religion, and 5 questions um, on East Indian and Islam religion. And it's basic recall. And if you guys, I'm gonna give you guys 10 minutes. If you want to go to the PowerPoint in Google Classroom, you have your notes with you, you remember what we talked about, you can go ahead and use all of that. That's the advantage of doing it virtually, right? So, is everybody ready? Can I send the link? Ready,
Yes, miss.
guys? Yes? Okay. So, it is 9:57 at 10:07. That is where we stop, and I'm going to continue, right? Click on the link and it will take you to the Google form. Kindly ensure to include your email because it did not ask for name. So include your email, the one from Google Classroom that you're using, right? And then if you're a package student, you also need to do the quiz because I will be sending the quiz via the WhatsApp. So if you're doing the quiz right now, you will not be doing it later when I send it. 6 more minutes for those of you that are still working, right? You have time. Don't rush or anything like that. And Daniel, I see you great. I can see when you guys have submitted. So, mhm.
Promise.
3 more minutes, guys. Those of you that are still working, right? If you are finished, then you just wait patiently. I have 10 responses already.
Miss,
S?
do each question counts to point?
Yep. Each question is 2 points. So it's a total of 10 questions. That's 20 points, right? Okay, that's it. Let's continue. So I want to go over, before we actually go into the content for this week, go over the activities that I have posted in Google Classroom. So let's talk about the first activity so that everybody has clear what I'm asking you to do, right? So share this tab. Okay, you guys can see that. So now the first assignment is writing a FLE reflection. So this is the flex. This is the closing activity for this unit, right? So now in your FLE reflection, it's basically you are writing a letter to God. And in this letter, students will respond to the following questions. And the topic for this assignment is, have I been a creation bully? Your letter though has to be formatted in the way when you write a letter. So you're gonna say, "Dear God," or you can use any beginning, your comma, and then you write your letter, and your name will go in the closing. So yours truly, yours sincerely, and your name at the bottom. Right there, you can do this typewritten or you can do this handwritten, right? So it can be either one. But you need to make sure that you have responded to these 6 questions that are here. You can respond to them in any order that you want once a response for each of these questions are included. All right. So this one is very direct, and you have these ones. Have I bullied someone from being different that I am? If so, why? So you can share if you have ever bullied someone, and it could be now, it could be way back then. Have you ever bullied someone? And bullying can be something from the slightest and the tiniest thing as calling somebody a name or laughing at somebody. That is a form of bullying to something very, very big, which is physical bullying, right? It can be either one. Or anything. So think about if you have ever bullied someone and maybe it was something that you did unconsciously, and you can share that there. Have I witnessed someone being bullied for being different? So have you seen somebody else bully another person and you were there and you saw what happened? Did I step up to support them? Why or why not? So if you saw this bullying that was happened, did you step up or did you intervene? Did you do something? You could say yes, you could say no. And if you say either of those responses, why did you intervene or why did you not intervene? Do I feel negative about somebody because they don't look like me? List 2 ways that a classmate and I are different and 3 ways we are similar. Make sure that you list more similarities than differences. And differences could be something positive, right? A difference between you and somebody in the class would be that somebody is outspoken. You are not outspoken, maybe you are timid, but that is a difference. And a difference can also be positive. Ask God to guide you in being a better person and let you love even when it's difficult to love. And that is how you would close off your letter, right? After everything that you have spoken in this letter, this is what your last sentence should ask or should say in your letter. And then you do your closing and then you insert your name. And you could design this, you can be creative. You can do whatever it is that you want to do to make this as creative as you want. All right. Anybody has any questions with this assignment? It's basically you guys writing a letter, right? And you might not know any of your classmates, but you can think about when you were in primary school, for example, right? When you were actually in the classroom and you have seen physically your classmates. Um, it doesn't have to be right now, right? Um, so does that make it a little bit more clear? Can I move on to the following assignment?
Yes, miss.
Okay. Now, the other assignment, I'm more interested in seeing what you guys will do for this one. So let me see if you guys can see it. Okay. So this activity is message in a bottle. And I do outline the steps that I want you guys to follow in creating this. And I would like that you read through this before you actually do it. Because the pictures that I'm asking you to take are at the different stages of completing this project. All right? This project is worth 80 points, and I stress on the 80. It is the biggest assignment that I have given you guys and the one that is worth the most points. Right? And it's not difficult, it's very easy to do. But because it is the last one for this cycle, I decided to give you guys this hands on. And it is worth a lot of points because for each section that I'm requiring you guys to do, I do give a specific amount of allotted points. All right. So now the first thing is that you would need to get an empty glass bottle. It does not matter what kind of bottle, any bottle can work. Um, and make sure that you clean the inside of it so that your papers that you're gonna put inside of the bottle don't get stained or messed up. So make sure that it's a clean bottle on the inside, right? Now you are gonna add a big message, and if you can see the bottle that I have here, the big message goes on the outside of the bottle, and your big message is gonna be religion and culture because that's what we're talking about this week. So you could stick a label on it, or a piece of paper, or you be creative and see how it is that you're gonna write religion and culture on the outside of this bottle. You could be around the bottle, right? Um, then you're gonna attach a tag to the neck of the bottle, and I have the tag right here. And this tag is gonna say four elements of religion and culture. So that is what is gonna go on your little label. So religion and culture goes on the bottle, and on the label, four elements of religion and culture. And then you're gonna need eight small little notes, and you could, it doesn't have to, I have this little shape right here, it could be little squares or anything, right? You be creative and how see how it is that you're gonna be doing your one. But pieces of paper will work, and on each piece of paper it has to be eight papers because it's four elements of religion, four elements of culture, and each element is gonna go on one little note, right? And I only want, it says each note will have the name of the element and one sentence describing it. And your sentence can be very simple sentences, and you could take this sentence directly out of the content that is posted in Google Classroom and the content that I have in the PowerPoint. And an example is given. I don't have an. I will post the example. It says an example is given, and I don't have it there. I will post it in a little while, right? And then you will take picture of the steps. You will take a picture of each of the eight notes, and you could put all of the eight notes and you take one picture for all of them. You don't have to take one individual for each note. A picture of the tag, a picture of the bottle with big message, and then the bottle with all of the notes inside. So the last one basically is your end product. You will get 5 points for being creative, and you will be getting 5 points automatically by submitting on time. And these assignments, as always, are due on Friday before 2 p.m. All right. Any questions, guys? No questions? Okay. So, if anybody needs further clarification later on, then you can always message and you can always ask. You can add the private comment in Google Classroom. But those are your activities for this week, right? So let's talk about the elements of, let's see, the elements of religion and culture. So basically, what we're doing today is basically what you need to include in this assignment of message in the bottle. The four elements of culture. We will explore four elements of culture, illustrating each element through individual and international political experience. And you have the four elements of culture: common life practice in society, symbols of group identity, stories of our place in the world, an agreement on what is good. And these are the four elements out, four of them out of the eight that you will be including in your message in a battle. So this is the name of the four elements for culture. Now let's talk about the first one. The first one is pretty direct. A common life practice in society. What does this mean? For a culture to be a culture, there has to be certain things that this culture does that identifies them, that separates them from another culture. And these could include their beliefs, their habits, their values, anything that this group of people do that is similar and alike with each other in this culture is one of the elements, and that is one aspect that identifies a group of people as being part of a culture. Now, when we are talking about culture in this case, this can be culture as ethnicity, a culture, a group of people of the same ethnicity, or it can just be a culture that is created not necessarily with the people of the same ethnicity. For example, um, if you guys have watched movies or you know about the past in the 80s and the 70s, there were these people that were very vividly demonstrated that they wanted peace. I don't have the name right now of the group of people, but they would dress in a specific way, and they would always use the peace sign, and they would have their groovy little symbols that represented that they were people of a different ethnicities, different cultures, but they were practicing the same thing, and that makes them a culture. Like when the teacher tells you the culture of this class is you guys are shy, um because everybody in the class is timid, and you don't speak a lot. So culture in these elements are either ethnicity, and we can identify ethnicity easily. For example, we talked about the Mayas and we talked about the East Indians, and they had specific things that they do, the namaste, which the East Indians do, and that identifies their culture. But there have non-ethnicity common cultures, like your little cliques of friends. When you guys were physically in the classroom, and there were always this, if they say group work, you would always go with the same people, you would work with those people. And because you guys work alike, you know how each other works, and you work in a specific way, and that is an element of culture. You guys practice certain things that identifies you as a group of people that have the same practices. All right, so that is the first element of culture. Now, when you guys are doing your message in a battle, I will expect you guys to have this common life practice in society, and you have one sentence that describes this. If you want to include this first sentence that I have here, that is perfectly fine. If you want to include portions of the other sentences, something that you take from here directly, that is fine. Or if you want to make your own sentence in your own words, that will also be perfect for you guys to do. Right? The second element of culture is symbols of group identity. Each culture has a symbol that represents them. And for example, talking about um, the Mayas and the East Indians. Symbols that represent these cultures could be, for example, the way that they dress. The Maya culture has a specific way of an attire, a distinctive way of dressing themselves. The East Indians have a specific way of clothing styles. You they Garenago have a specific way of dressing. The Garenago also has their own flag, and all of those things are symbols that differentiate these cultures from one another. Other cultures that are existing nowadays, the LGBT, the lesbians, gays, transsexual, transgender. It's Q some. Right now, presently, it has a big, long abbreviation for it. But that is a culture that is now more vivid, and they have their own flag. They have their own symbols that is used to identify that culture of people. um, the Red Cross is a culture. They have their symbol that represents them because they have a specific way of doing things. That is a group of people that are from different ethnicities but are together and working towards together and have the same practices, and the symbol represents them. And you have many examples like styles of architecture. When we talk about the East Indians, they build their temples in a specific location. You have land or waterscapes that influence the activity of life, the monuments, the flags, and other identity banners, styles of clothing, habits of dress, distinctive food and drinks. If we were to talk about cultures in Belize, one of the things that automatically we can identify is the different foods that each culture has and the different drinks that each culture has, and that is a symbol that identifies them and differentiates them from another culture. So this is the second one, and again, symbols of group identity. And you could choose, for example, constructing and interpreting signs as a basic activity in the society. You can include They include monuments, styles of clothing, distinctive foods, and so on. Any of these sentences or something that you create out of your own will work for your message in the bottom. Another element of culture is the stories of our place in the world. The power of telling a story. What does a story do that impacts and is an important element of culture? Like the cultural use of symbols, society needs to tell stories. And these stories can be about individuals, it can be about groups of people, it can be about events that happened way back in the past or happened more recently. It can be stories of victory, stories of defeat involving friends and enemies. Now, cultural change. Let's talk about these stories. When we talk about these stories, we include the things that happen in history basically. What happened in history that impacted this culture and made this culture what it is today? If we talk about the Garenago culture in Belize, we celebrate Garifuna Settlement Day, or we used to. I think that they changed it recently. But when we talk about that, that is an event in history. That is a story that is told each year for everyone to understand how it is that this culture arrived in Belize. And if you guys have ever seen the events that happens, you have witnesses via news, live stream, social media, you see that this culture reenacts it every year. They get on their boat, they dress up in their cultural attire, and they row their boat until they reach land, because that is the story of what happened. The Garenago came to Belize through water transportation, but that is a story that is told. When the mestizo culture tells of stories of the Shikabai and the Tataduende, all of these stories are elements of of their culture. It makes their culture. And if we are superstitious or not, each story tells of a specific moral that happens afterwards. If you talk about the Tataduende is believed to take children, but these children that he takes are children that either wander away from their parents or children that are abandoned by their parents, and he takes them. Um, if we talk about La Yorona and the Shikabai, which are believed to be women in white, um, People believe like the La Llorona had killed her children and then suicide herself, and that's why she walks in the middle of in late hours of the night, and she leads drunkards. And all of these stories that, even though we don't believe in La Llorona or La Shikabai or Tata Duende, you may or you may not believe, but the story that is told within the idea of these superstitions makes this culture that culture. In another example is talking about Anansi. Um, in the Creole culture, the stories of this trickster spider that is told in this culture, all of these make this culture this culture. Now, when we talk about cultural change, if we have a change in a culture, we also have a war that is created, a cultural war that is created in this culture. Cultural change basically talks about, if a story is told in a specific way, later on it might be changed. And that happens in life, like when somebody tells you something that happened, like your neighbor tells you something that happened to them, and then you tell your other neighbor, and that neighbor tells somebody else. Somewhere along the telling of this story, the story changes. So by the time the first person had told something to the first person, um, by the time that that message reaches to the last person that got that story, it's a completely different story. And that is what happens in society. um for example, when we talked about the Mayas, do you guys remember that we said that nobody knows what happened to the Maya? Why did the Maya disappear? What happened to the Mayan culture that out of nowhere it vanished? It's a story that maybe some people did know what happened, but a story that was not passed on, or a story that different people changed. Remember, different archaeologists and researchers have different ideas of what happened to these people. They believe um, that the Europeans brought diseases, and these diseases like smallpox. The Mayas didn't have a cure for those things because they did not exist here in this part of the world. That is just one idea of what happened, and other people believe in other things, and that is where a cultural change happens, where the story changes. But because the story changes, now we have this cultural war where some people are gonna say that's not what happened, and other people are gonna say this is what happened, and this is not what happened. And then there is that cultural war, that cultural battle that happens. And that is why cultures then now break apart, because the stories of our place in this world is an important part in keeping cultures together. And we're just gonna talk about the last element of culture, and then that will be it for today's class, right? We're gonna have to talk about the culture elements of religion in the following class. The last element of culture is agreement on what is good. Now, how can this be an element of culture? The way society decides what it means to have a good life. If I'm in a culture, how will my culture tell me if you have a good life or if you don't have a good life? Well, society experiences growth and experiences decline, experiences health and experiences decay, experiences fitness and experiences injury. So society is just like a human being. All of these things that a human being experiences, we can use this analogy to represent society. Culture is a way of measuring psychologically and emotional health of a society. Now, how is that possible? If you guys watch news and you hear when the news, the anchor says that, for example, talking about finance in a country, finance may grow at some point. We may have an expenditure. It might decline at other points where we fall into debt. If we talk about COVID right now, how many COVID cases are popping out? Yesterday, we had 400 and add positive cases of COVID. And then on the previous day, we only had, I think, about 100 and something. How is that possible where sometimes we have these um, these growths and these declines and all of these things. But people can measure society, and these are psychologists and people that are determined to know how society works and how to affect society. And they can measure psychologically and emotionally the health of society, because culture plays an important role in society. Without a culture, people don't feel that they have an identity. You might not be 100% following what your ethnicity says, but your family and yourself follow a specific culture. You follow a way of living. And if you do not have that anymore, or if that way of living is to be changed or to be removed, you no longer feel that you are yourself. And that is where the psychological and emotional health of society and of people is then diminished or affected. Culture involves agreement on the kinds of things that are good for society and can make it flourish. If you are living in your household, and as I mentioned, your household has a specific culture, you live a certain way, and maybe other people in your class, other people in your church, other people in your community don't live that same way. And your family helps you decide and help teaches you what is good in your society. And talking about our culture, let's talk about the mestizo or the Maya or the East Indian. All of these cultures had a specific way of living. We talked about how they used to live, how was their household, how do they dress, what do they eat. All of these things are aligned with what they think is good for society, and that's why they believe in that. That's why they make it flourish, and that's why we try to have this cultural message be carried on from generation to generation. But now we have what is called a cultural clash, where different societies prioritize different understandings of what is good. If we have so many different cultures and each culture believes this is what is good, this is what is good, this is how you're supposed to live your life, this is how your life is supposed to be, then we have now this cultural clash where you have one culture believing one thing and another culture believing another thing. And that is one reason why society does not always function the way it should function, because we are more inclined into following this element of culture, agreeing on what is good in my culture, but not all of the cultures deciding as a community and as a society what is good for society and what is good for everyone. So now this was the last element of culture, guys, as I mentioned, and I know that it's time already. So, um, we are just gonna leave it here. I'm gonna talk about the elements of religion in the following class. I will be recording the quiz grades that you guys have submitted. And then, if anybody did not get a chance to see their grade at the end of the quiz, feel free to message me and I will give you guys your grade for this quiz. All right. Um, have a great rest of the day, guys. I will see you guys on Thursday. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Miss.
Bye, Miss.
Bye, guys.
Bye, miss.
Bye.
Bye, Miss.
Bye, guys. Bye.
Bye, Miss.
Bye.
Bye, miss.
Bye.